Welcome to Home Story with Veronica. I'm Veronica Diquez, and today we're diving into the people, places, and decisions that make a house a home. You're watching Now Media Television. Welcome to Home Story, where every home has a journey and every journey has a story. I'm your host, Veronica Diquez, and today I am joined by Tiffany Dearman, a seasoned real estate sales coach with over 26 years of experience helping agents and teams succeed in competitive markets. Tiffany is passionate about helping professionals serve buyers better and build confidence through proven systems and smart strategies. Tiffany, welcome to Home Story. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Today, we're starting with something that so many people relate to, the emotional roller coaster of buying your very first home. The
Yes.
problem many buyers are facing is that purchasing a first home feels overwhelming, and
Yeah.
it often feels like they don't even know where to begin. With the right guidance, preparation, and emotional support, that fear can turn into confidence and clarity. So, Tiffany, when someone says they're scared to start house hunting because they don't know what they don't know,
Right.
how do you help them take that first step with confidence?
I love that. So the first thing I share with clients, which is phenomenal, that there is a buying process. Back to my research, there's a way that buyers say they want to buy, and I call it backflip. That's
Okay.
an acronym. And if I do my job really well, then hopefully I'll be backflipping people into their new homes because they'll be so excited. So that's the goal. The backflip stands for budget, area, community, floor plan, lot, purchase agreement, and personalizing your home. And so what I do is first I explain that to clients so they can see that they can also own the experience and they can know when they're ready to make a final decision because we break it down into individual parts and it's easier to digest because it is a little overwhelming. And backflip starts with budget. And a lot of buyers are very intimidated by the finance process and budget and just understanding all of that. So that's where I start, oftentimes with especially first time home buyers, is talking about budget, what they're comfortable with versus what they'll actually qualify for. And I go through all of that with my clients. But I think the most important thing is just alleviating their anxiety and their fears by helping them understand that there is a process to this and you can know when you should feel confident in making a decision.
I love that. That is so well put. I've never heard it that well put before. I need to learn that. And
It's
Tiffany,
really
what are
good.
the most, yes, I love that. What are the most common misunderstandings first time buyers have about the process, and how do you simplify things so that it feels actually doable?
Right. So I would say one of the very first things that buyers will misunderstand, a lot of times they're on the internet and they're searching and they don't realize when they reach out to a real estate agent that they are reaching out to a buyer's agent who can show them homes anywhere. Most of the time, they think they're going to call and talk to the listing agent on every property they're interested in, and they have to tell their story 15 times. So one of the first things I explain to them is at this point, now that we've connected, you can call me on any property you have interest in. In fact, I want you to do that because I'm going to do the research for you. Buyers don't always understand the buyer agency agreement. So I'm going to explain that to them and the value in having a real estate broker who's going to make them a priority and helping them find a home, even when they don't have time. They're a priority for me. Holidays, things change, but I'm always looking for them. So I explained that to them. And then just the idea that it's a busy market out there, and I have a lot more people who have had maybe a little disappointment because they didn't make an offer on what they thought was the perfect house. Then I have people who are disappointed because they did. So I try to set really good expectations with them about that. The purchase agreement. What are you agreeing to? What are you committing to? What is the seller agreeing to? What are they committing to? Showings, 24 hours is typically
Mhm.
the standard, but buyers will call you and they're so excited, like, can I see this house today? And I'm like,
Yes. Can
let
we go in 30 minutes?
yes, can you drop everything? And you're just like, you know what? I could, but I will guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, that is going to be more of a demotivator than a motivator because I need to do the research. So I will say, let me call. Let me make sure this isn't an as is property. or that, it needs to close on a certain date. There's just so many,
Exactly.
they don't understand that there's realtor notes. That's another thing buyers don't get, right?
Yes,
They
we see stuff
understand.
they don't see. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, let me look at the realtor notes, which again immediately establishes your value as a realtor. And then let me call you back and then let's see, when the seller's okay with us getting, and then like, oh yeah, I forget people might live there.
Yeah, exactly. They have a dog. They have to make sure that the dog is out of the house.
Right, all of that stuff. So I
Yeah.
really try to go through that just a little bit, just enough for them to feel once again empowered and educated about the process instead of that information trickling out one conversation at a time. And then it gets frustrating because they don't know what to anticipate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
expectation setting solves a multitude of problems.
I 100% agree because if they know a little bit what to expect and maybe even expectations on the unexpected that could happen, it
Right?
just prepares them so much better because if anything like that happens, then they're like, "Oh, you did mention this was a possibility." And it just
Absolutely.
takes that stress away from them. I 100% agree with that.
Yes. And they're not going to remember everything you say when you say it. But
Correct.
if you say, remember when I said this, then it'll come back to them because it is a
Yeah.
lot of information, and you do try to break it down in bite-sized chunks so that they can,
Yeah.
receive it. But I find that it really works well to explain that buying process and then to just walk through just the process of looking for a home and what you should expect. And I'm going to set up a search for you, and you're going to get these properties, and you might get them before I actually get them because there's 600 homes that come on the market every day. And so I can't, possibly keep up with all those. So if you get one, just, let me know if that's one that you're really interested in. And I'm looking to, and I'm going to send you my suggestions so that they know how the process goes.
I love that. I love that. And speaking about, if somebody is going to buy their first house, they're probably very excited and they're very nervous.
Yes.
So how do you help buyers balance that excitement and nerves so they don't shut down or rush to make a big decision?
Yeah. I find that a lot of times the shutting down will come from either not being able to find what they think they should be able to find in the market or missing out on properties. That's when I find that people will just be overwhelmed and want to check out. So I make sure I set a clear expectation. What are you looking for? And what have you, just online, have you seen anything that fits that? So that they can remind themselves that the market is the market is the market and it
Mhm.
has what it has. And I want you to be realistic about your price range and the area you want to be in, what we're going to see. And then when we see it, they just trust me more because I actually gave them accurate information. So I think if you do a really good job of that, so they have realistic expectations, and if it's like, hey, now's not the time, maybe now isn't the time, or maybe it's just expectations and need to be reset. And then rushing into it, I probably have that a little bit less. They're rushed to see a property, but they are typically not in a rush, to make the biggest decision that they're
Yeah.
making in their lives. But that can happen. So that's where the whole buying process comes in. And what I didn't say is in each of those stages, budget, area, community, floor plan, lot, purchase agreement, personalized, there's probably four critical pieces of information in each of those areas that they need to understand. Like when you're talking about area, I'm going to ask them, what kind of access do you want around town? What do you want to live close to? What kind of everyday conveniences? So they don't miss important things. And then they're really frustrated once they move into the house, like, oh man, I didn't know Walmart was going to be 20 minutes away, kind of thing. So that's how
Exactly.
we help them not rush, is to make sure that they're thinking through the really important things.
Yes. You definitely don't want to get buyer's remorse on a house.
Right. No, that is not a good thing.
That is painful.
That's an expensive proposition.
Yes, yes. No, how important is building a relationship with a trusted realtor before writing an offer? And what does that relationship look like emotionally, in your opinion?
I think it's critically important. Trust is the highest form of human motivation in any transaction. So it is everything. And I think it looks like, well, what I tell my clients is if I'm your realtor, you're my family. That's what that looks like. I'm going to treat you like I would treat family in terms of being shooting straight with you. I am going to be
Mhm.
straight up honest about, what you're looking for, budget, all of those things, and try to really consult you, especially with the finance part of it. But you know what? I don't think it has to take long. My expectation when I meet with a client is the first appointment, they trust me because they see me as competent. They know I know my market. They know that I understand the important decisions and they know I can get them. They feel confident I can get them to their end point, what they want to do. And I can do that pretty much with a whole, lot less hassle. Like I'm going to take the stress out of it for you. And so once I, equip them and educate them so that they feel empowered, they trust me. Like I feel like that you can gain that you can, make a friend and not necessarily make a sale. I think people appreciate someone who obviously is sensitive to their needs, but also very competent at what they do. I know I appreciate that. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I think when you inform your clients and your buyers, they make such an informed decision that, like you said, it takes away that hesitant part of it or that buyer's remorse that they maybe change their minds later on. It's just all of the information that you're giving up front. It's truly changing the entire experience for
Yeah.
them from the very beginning. And being honest is one of my favorite things. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes I tell my clients, listen, this is your wish list. That's adorable. We don't have the budget for your wish list.
That's right.
So what are you willing to sacrifice? Because
That's
we're
right.
just not going to find it. So
Right.
I absolutely love your approach. I think it's amazing. And coming up next, we're actually shifting from buyers to sellers
Okay.
and talking about how to prepare a home strategically so it truly stands out in today's market. We will be right back.
Perfect.
We'll be right back with more stories, strategies, and inspiration to help you write your next home chapter. This is Home Story with Veronica on Now Media Television. And we're back. I'm Veronica Diquez, and you're watching Home Story with Veronica on Now Media Television. Let's jump back into today's conversation. Welcome back to Home Story. Want more of what you're watching? Stay connected to Home Story and every Now Media TV favorite live or on demand anytime you like. Download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and unlock nonstop bilingual programming in English and Espanol. On the move, you can also watch the podcast version right from our website at www.nowmedia.tv. From business and news to lifestyle, culture, and beyond, Now Media TV is streaming around the clock, ready whenever you are. Welcome back to Home Story. I am here with the beautiful Tiffany Dearman. And now we are talking about the seller's side of the journey, which is a completely different side than the buyer's one. Specifically, how to prepare a home for the market in a smart, strategic way. The problem facing many sellers is that getting a home ready for the market feels overwhelming, and it often feels like they don't know which improvements actually matter. Strategic preparation helps sellers invest wisely, attract buyers emotionally, and maximize value, which is what every seller wants in the end.
Yes.
In your professional opinion, what are the first few changes that you suggest that sellers make that truly help buyers fall in love with a home?
Okay, I love that question. And I love working with sellers. And first, I'm going to say the why behind the what. A lot of times, sellers don't realize their first showings are online. You have to compel people to get up off the couch and come see your house, right? And so we want to make sure we do the things that add a visual aesthetic appeal through a camera. Not everything you can see through that. So obviously, flooring is a big one. Flooring is a really big one, whether it's laminate or wood or, vinyl plank. That is a big thing that sellers can do that add value. Plus, flooring is something that changes a lot, over time. It can quickly date your home depending on, the type of flooring you have. Paint, flooring and paint can like change everything. And I always tell sellers that, and just cleanliness. Just making sure that it looks like a move-in ready home because you don't want people knocking off the value of your home just because the baseboards are scuffed up, right? Because for every $100 thing you can do, someone's going to knock $1,000 off the price because
100%.
it doesn't make any sense to knock $100 off a $350,000 home, right? So those are some of the things that I immediately will let sellers know. And then sometimes I think sellers can be tempted to say, well, why don't I just not do that and let the buyer do it? when, they move in because they're going to want something different. And I said, that would be great if your first showings weren't online. But if you want someone to fall
Yeah.
in love with your home visually, you want to do those. You want to put your A game on the market. I love
Mhm.
sports. So I tell my sellers, listen, selling your home is as competitive as any NBA basketball game. And
Yeah.
what coach do you know that would put their B team in and see how far behind they could get, and then at halftime pull them out and put the A team in to make up for lost points? It wouldn't happen,
I love
right?
that.
Right? So why would you do that with your house? Because you've got all these showings coming through Zillow and all these hundreds and
Yeah.
hundreds of, sites, and you don't get that traffic back necessarily. So you want to leverage that traffic and you want to appeal to the person who wants to buy your home when you hit the market. That's how you sell top of market.
Mhm.
And so I always encourage them to do that. And then I'll let them know, based on research, which hasn't changed in literally decades, space is the number one feature. So we want to vaporize clutter. That's
Yes.
my rhymes. We vaporize clutter, we neutralize colors, we emphasize lifestyle.
I
We
love that.
maximize space, so I try to give them things that they can visually, grab onto. But that's the number one thing. Brick and in most markets is still very popular and people love brick.
Hmm.
Landscaping, if your landscaping's looking good, that's going to add to your curb appeal. So that's a big
Yep.
one. Front doors, people still upgrade their front doors a lot. And
Yep.
appliances, shiny stuff, right? So when you get the flooring and the walls are neutralized and you might have a few, new appliances, and they don't have to be brand new. I never want my sellers to spend one penny more than is necessary to get
Yep.
what they want out of their home. But I want them to do what's necessary. And I don't want them to do what's not necessary because I always say cost does not equal value, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, if you want to get this, new hybrid $10,000 HVAC system, that's beautiful. But when people purchase a home, they expect it to have an HVAC system, and they don't
That's
really
it.
necessarily value that. So you may not get that back. So that's how
Yeah.
I help guide, my sellers so that they can, make sense. We can make
Yeah.
sense
And
of it.
and that's why it's so important for a seller to consult with a professional because we
Yes.
we can truly tell them, hey, listen, this will add value, will not.
No.
It makes such a difference because they're thinking in a way that they would like the house to be, but that's not necessarily how every buyer is going to want their house to be. Like what you said, the fancy HVAC. They just want an HVAC. They don't necessarily want the fancy one. So
Right.
absolutely, I love that input. And how do you guide sellers in choosing between small cosmetic fixes and bigger renovations?
Typically I find I need to know why they feel the need to do a huge renovation. Once again, I'm like, let's do the anything that needs to be repaired, yes. Because once again, the buyer is calculating the emotional investment of fixing stuff. And they're always going to calculate it higher, usually, than it would cost you to do it before they ever see that. So any repairs that need to be done, I'm going to tell them to do that. But huge renovations in a home, if you're getting ready to sell it, I would say typically you just have to know that there's no guarantee that you're going to get back out of it what you're putting into it. If I could tell you, and I get asked this question all the time, well, if we do this, how much more will we get?
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
could tell you that, I would be on Wall Street, right?
Yes,
I'd never be
exactly.
here.
If I had the magic ball.
Yeah, it would be a whole different thing, and I wouldn't be here right now. So I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is what people are paying for. I can show you what people are actually paying for in your neighborhood, what they're paying for in this market. And so, what you should feel good about doing because people have already demonstrated they're paying for it. And that's how I help them with the whole renovation thing. It just may not make a big deal to someone if you turn this, closet or this bedroom, into a study and do that. That might not be the thing
Yeah.
that's going to make the difference for you.
Exactly. And I love that, nowadays, us as realtors, we have resources from other companies to actually help sellers do this. I literally just put a house on the market and my
Uh-huh.
client was afraid of, you know, dipping into their savings to they had to do some renovations. Otherwise they
Yes,
were gonna sell for really low. And now there's
yes,
companies that can do the renovations and they don't pay until closing day and so
yes.
forth. So don't, my message to all the sellers right now is talk to a professional, because Tiffany will have those resources for you. There is not just one way to do it. There's many ways that we can help you get that done. So it's very important that you work with someone like Tiffany for that. And Tiffany, how do you help clients understand what buyers are really looking for, what we were talking about, when they walk through a home? How do you explain that setup for the sellers, for them to understand what a buyer's mentality is like?
Yes, that is very helpful. Well, first of all, buyers have budgets. So they're first looking for something that, it's going to fit their lifestyle and their family needs, but also fit in their budget. The best thing is when your seller is a buyer also. I love that because then we go look at houses together. And then I can just show them and I can see their reaction when they see certain things, like when it's not clean or when it's not well lit, and they make comments. And I'm like, see, this is what you don't want to do. You're
Yeah,
making you're making my job easier because now you can see as a buyer what attracts you, because that's the most important thing, is to be able to put the seller in the buyer's mind. That's our job. Because it's so easy when you're a seller not to go there because you love your house, right? You love everything you've done, and somebody else should love it as much as you. But when you can put the
exactly.
buyer's mind, right? And you can show them
Yeah,
the types of things that buyers appreciate and that buyers are looking for, which again could be space or just updated. They don't want to have a money pit. They don't want to buy a home and then have to, fix things or, replace the water heater right away or the HVAC
yeah.
system, that unknown. That is a fear for buyers. And so those are the things we talk about too. I do with sellers.
Exactly. And that's how they're going to get the best return, right? And the best profit when they sell their home.
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, before I ask you the next question, I do want to make sure that our viewers know how to get a hold of you. So, if somebody wants to consult with you, if somebody wants to go to your website, how can they reach you? Please give us all your information.
Okay, so they can go to therealresultsteam.com. That's our website. They can find me there. They can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, not on YouTube with Real Results, but all of it is Real Results Team Indie. Real Results Team Indie. So they can find me on all the social media sites and my website. So it's pretty not too hard to find me.
I love that. And you help not only buyers and sellers, but you actually help agents and agencies, correct?
I do. I have an
Okay,
actual sales coaching business, and that's
perfect.
called X Factor. And I work with high producing agents and new home builder sales teams. And I teach them that buying process, and I teach them how to walk clients through that buying process effectively so that everybody's on
Perfect.
the same page. Yes.
Because we have all
Yes.
channels who can reach
Yes.
out to you. I
Yes.
love that. Now, very quickly, because we have 1 minute before we have to go on a break, can you share maybe one detail or one transformation story when something small made a big difference?
As far as the seller's home,
When you were helping a seller, yeah.
I'm pretty bullish about not putting my sellers' homes on the market until they're ready to go. But
Okay.
I will say I have had a seller who just really, really, really did not want to replace the carpet throughout
Okay.
the home. And we did it. They were on the market a few weeks. They weren't getting, the response that I set the expectation we should get within this amount of time, or else there's a sweet spot we're not hitting. And
Yeah.
we were getting some views, but not the actual offers. We replaced the carpet. Photos looked so much better. And I think
Yeah.
it took us
And it
another
moved.
four
I
showings.
love that.
We had an offer.
I love that. So it made a big difference. Now, up next, we're going to talk about how buyers can stay confident and competitive in fast moving markets where homes don't stay available for long.
Yes. Great.
We'll be right back with more stories, strategies, and inspiration to help you write your next home chapter. This is Home Story with Veronica on Now Media Television. And we're back. I'm Veronica Diquez, and you're watching Home Story with Veronica on Now Media Television. Let's jump back into today's conversation. Hey guys, welcome back to Home Story with Veronica. We have talked about first-time confidence and strategic selling. Now we are diving into one of the biggest challenges buyers face today, navigating competitive markets. Yes, they still do exist. The problem facing many buyers is that bidding wars and fast-moving listings feel discouraging, and it often feels like they'll never find a home that they love at a price that they can afford. Preparation, strategy, and emotional resilience can help buyers compete with confidence instead of fear. Tiffany, what do you tell buyers who feel anxious because they keep losing out to other offers?
Okay, well, again, I start first with making sure I educate them well on what's going to happen. We in my market, we have about 2.3 months supply of homes on the market. A healthy market is 6 months. So I make sure they understand if not another home came on the market and everything's sold that's on the market, it would only take 2.3 months and we'd be out of houses. So to set their expectation that it is really competitive. And then I explain to them how we leverage the offer. There's, probably 10 things, 5 to 10 things that you can do to really give your offer leverage with the seller. And I would say after really the first time a buyer maybe doesn't take everything I say to heart and they
Yeah.
insist on making an offer that I've told them might not get them what they want, usually after that happens once, maybe twice, it doesn't happen again. Or they decide this is not the market for me to compete in because they do not want to play the game. They don't want to do the bidding war. They're not willing to go above, list price or all the crazy things that people will do to get the home that they
Yeah.
want. But I would say after that, usually they're like, okay, she was not just trying to get us, she was telling us the truth. And then it's what do you really, really want to accomplish? So I work through those things that allow them to actually have leverage with the offer. And I communicate with the other agent. I mean, oftentimes, we're all trying to do the best thing for our client. There may be things
Mm-hmm.
that are really important to the seller that I can share and say, okay, this is really important to them. Are you guys interested in, making an offer that includes this? Yeah.
Yes, and that is such an underestimated, uh, I think, advantage that you have in working with a great realtor is making sure that your realtor is communicating with the other agent
Yes.
to make sure that we know what the soft spots are, what's going to be, think like the seller who's actually selling that house, not just any seller. So that's definitely, I'm glad you brought that up. Make sure buyers, when you're working with your agent, ask them, did you talk to the other agent? Did you
Yes.
ask that question?
Everybody wants to get to closing. And
Yeah.
agents like working with other agents that want to get to closing. I mean, we're all human. And so having a real estate agent representing you that's got a great
Yeah.
reputation, that, gets deals done, that's huge, especially in a competitive market. That is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a good agent can make or break an offer.
Yes.
100%. We've
Yes.
been through it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And how do you help buyers prepare in advance so that they can actually move quickly without panicking in a fast moving market?
Well, the first thing you got to do is get them pre-approved. When the market's crazy, there are some sellers who don't even want to show their homes unless the buyer is pre-approved. They may ask for that up front. And so getting them pre-approved so that seller knows they're serious is huge.
Yeah.
Explaining earnest money, you can leverage an offer with that so that they know you're serious and you're not, looking to back out, of a transaction because you're willing to make, a little bit more of an investment up front. So I think the financing is a really, really big part of it. And then making sure that we have looked at, several different types of properties that they think is going to, meet their expectations and meet their needs and take them back through backflip and that whole buying process. And asking questions before we ever go out there on, area and community. What are you looking for in a neighborhood? Are you really interested in an association? Or are you trying to avoid that? All of those things that are going to make them that much more excited when they find that property and are ready to make that offer and it's competitive. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's understanding where the seller's coming from, right? If you give them that thinking cap, think like the seller. If you were
Oh,
selling this house and you were being presented this
yes.
versus presented this, what would you pick? So
Yes.
that's,
And
it's
being realistic. about
Yeah.
what you can ask for in a super competitive market. I mean, you can ask for it, but just understand the seller's looking at their net number. They're
Yeah.
looking at what they're going to be able to walk away with, whether it's, replacing a roof or contributing to closing costs or none of those things, or even, getting the appraisal versus, an appraisal waiver type thing because of, how much you're putting into the house. All of those things are opportunities for the deal to not come together. So the more you can minimize that, we call them clean offers. I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The more you minimize, those opportunities for the deal to fall apart, the more, likely you are to be able to come to an agreement and they can get their home. Yes.
Absolutely. And if you can think of any story of somebody that you helped that way, or a buyer found the right home after losing out on probably many offers before that, and what shifted for them, do you have an example that you can think of that you can share
Oh my
with
gosh,
our
there's
viewers?
so many. It's finding one
Yeah.
to talk about because there one comes to mind, and they're actually sisters, and they both ended up buying homes. But at first, she absolutely did not want to compete. She was like, I will not compete, and because it was a crazy, crazy market. And so we did, put an offer on a couple of houses, and she didn't get them. And then I had to step back and say, okay, tell me in terms of competing, is there a dollar amount that really you could be comfortable with in the event? And we looked at, at what point you break even on this house, at what point you're starting to build wealth. So you go deep and you're like, I don't want this to be a narrow decision that keeps you from getting what you really want, but it's really not protecting you from the thing you're afraid of, because waiting can also cost you that too. We don't know, what's going to happen. So a full big picture, almost like counseling.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's what it took. And she was like, you know what? I really didn't think about the fact that, I'm going to have a tax write-off now. And I don't have that now. So I'll have that with my home. And
Yeah.
I think even daycare, she was going to like be able to do daycare. So there were lots of things that were, and she was like, okay. And so the next house we looked at, and she doesn't live far from me, she loved it. And then her sister bought. And it's been, I hear from her every year. She'll like reach out for some reason. And
Yeah.
she was so happy with her
That's
house.
awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, just making sure you explore everything.
Yes. And speaking of that, when somebody goes through that process and maybe you're in a hot neighborhood and it doesn't matter what the market is doing, that neighborhood is always hot and people are always looking. So there's a lot of competition.
Yes.
How do you help your buyers stay grounded emotionally when it feels like the market is beating them?
Right. Well, it can be a little bit of a roller coaster. I know when they're
Yeah.
actually making an offer, I will always tell them when they'll say, what should we offer? What's the amount? And it's like, well, I can't tell you what to offer. I can give you what the market is bearing right now. And based on their activity, because I can see their showings, I can tell you it's a very hot property. But what I will tell you is whatever we decide on, make sure that it's an offer that you're going to be okay no matter what happens. You're like, I would not have paid one penny more for that house, because then you won't be disappointed that you may not get a second chance. And if you get it for that amount, you won't be like, oh, well, we should have offered less.
Yeah.
That will happen too. And so I try to help them just kind of stay, balanced with their emotions, because you need to be happy. And then it's like dating. Once you get that house, you stop looking.
Yeah.
You know, you stick with that and you be happy with that. But I think that's so important, because it is easy to feel a bit overwhelmed and to feel like the market's beating them. But I think if they stay committed, and if it's something they really want and they're willing to do what it takes to get a home in that market, we will find the house. We will find the house. And I am much more communicative in that situation, like on a regular basis, because the urgency level is so high. So I am
Yes.
talking to those clients like daily almost, to make sure that I still am getting a good gauge of where they're at. And I think that calms them down. I think they appreciate that because they don't feel like they're going to miss something. I've definitely had those buyers that were so upset that they had worked with someone else
Yeah.
and they didn't feel like they should have missed that house and they would have paid more. And that's why I'm like, oh no, you make the offer for what you feel like it's worth, because you may not get a chance. Counters are like a blessing, but they don't always happen. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And real quick, anything or any creative tactics that you want to share that help whenever it's a competitive market, like escalation clauses, like I don't even want to say personal letters because in my market, no, don't do that.
You can't in mine either. They stopped the personal letters because they are
They
like,
stop the
no,
personal letters.
those could go either way in terms of, persuading a seller. So no more personal letters. People can, I think one that really helps because with sellers, the unknown is the inspection, right? And
Yes.
so when buyers are willing to say, we will not ask for repairs that are more than this or less than this amount and this total, I think that can be really helpful for sellers
Absolutely.
and give you some leverage. Possession time, giving the sellers a little extra time to be in the
Yeah.
house. Even being willing to rent it back if that works with your time frame, so the seller doesn't have
Yeah.
to, look for another place to live. Um, Again, depending on what you're putting down, you may be able to get an appraisal waiver if you're okay with that. Another thing that kind of can slow the deal down, the appraisal and the inspection. So those are all
Yes.
things in addition to the escalation clause, offering, more than list if that's something that you're interested in doing. We just put everything on the table, but all of those things and talking to the agent to find out if there's something you're missing.
Yes.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, Tiffany, you've been so enlightening. I have enjoyed having you on the show so much, and I'm sure our viewers have as well.
Thank you.
Just make sure everybody who's watching that you follow, that you look for Tiffany Dearman and that you follow her. And if you need help, she can absolutely help you with that. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank
And
you.
don't go anywhere because we will be right back.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more stories, strategies, and inspiration to help you write your next home chapter. This is Home Story with Veronica on Now Media Television. And we're back. I'm Veronica Diquez, and you're watching Home Story with Veronica on Now Media Television. Let's jump back into today's conversation. Hey there, want more of what you're watching? Stay connected to Home Story and every Now Media TV favorite, live or on demand, anytime you like. You can download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and unlock nonstop bilingual programming in English and Spanish. On the move, you can also catch the podcast version right from our website at www.nowmedia.tv, from business and news to lifestyle, culture, and beyond. Now Media TV is streaming around the clock, ready whenever you are. Now let's go back to what we talked about on the first three segments of our show. Buying or selling a home isn't just a transaction. It's a life moment. It's emotional, it's personal, and for most people is one of the biggest decisions that they'll ever make. And on Home Story today, we talked to Tiffany Dearman, and our conversation was absolutely amazing. We started by talking about first time buyers because that's where uncertainty often shows up the loudest. And for many buyers, the fear isn't really about money or paperwork. It's about not knowing what's coming next. It's the feeling of stepping into something unfamiliar and worrying about making the wrong move. Now, here's something that I want every buyer to hear clearly. Confidence does not come from knowing everything. It comes from clarity, from understanding the process step by step before emotions take over. You don't need to be an expert in real estate. You need someone who can explain what's happening, why it matters, and what your next move should be, just like Tiffany explained on our show today. Preparation changes everything. When buyers prepare early, financially, emotionally, and mentally, they stop reacting to the market and they start moving with intention. That preparation is what allows buyers to act quickly without panicking, to make decisions without rushing, and to stay grounded even when competition shows up. We also talked with Tiffany about the emotional balance that buyers need to maintain. Buying a home should be exciting, but when excitement turns into pressure, people tend to shut down or they rush into decisions. And that's never a good thing. Confidence lives in the middle, where excitement is supported by information and trust. And that's why working with somebody professional like Tiffany Dearman is so important and critical for your process. Another important point that we discussed is something buyers don't always hear enough. Losing out on a home does not mean that you failed. In a competitive market, it's common to face rejection before success. Many of the strongest buyer stories don't start with an instant win. They start with learning, with adjusting, and staying patient throughout the entire process. Sometimes, hey, things happen for a reason, right? You may have lost on one house, but then you found another one that you liked even better than that one. So the right home often shows up when buyers are emotionally ready, not just financially ready. And that shift in mindset makes all the difference in the world. From there, Tiffany and I talked about the seller side of the journey, where overwhelm shows up in a very different way than for buyers. Sellers often feel pressure to do everything at once. They want to renovate, they want to redecorate, they want to upgrade, spend, spend, and spend. And then it's easy to lose sight of what actually matters because you might not be able to make all of that return on investment back. And here's the truth for sellers. Your home does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be positioned correctly. Strategic preparation is not about doing more. It is about doing the right things. It's about understanding how buyers walk through a home, what they notice first, and what makes them feel comfortable enough to imagine their life there. And something Tiffany mentioned that was really important is remember the first time that the buyers see your home is online. They're going to look at it on a computer, they're going to look at it on their phone. That's where they're going to see it the most. So make sure that you talk to someone like Tiffany to give you pointers on what it is that's going to make that house look absolutely amazing on pictures, because that's where you sell it for the first time to the buyers. Small, thoughtful changes often have the biggest impact. Decluttering allows buyers to see space. Proper lighting changes how rooms feel. Neutral, intentional staging helps buyers emotionally connect without getting distracted. These are not cosmetic details. They are emotional cues. And that's very important when somebody goes and see the house that you are trying to sell as a seller. Tiffany and I also talked about how sellers benefit most when they understand what buyers are really looking for instead of guessing or just relying on trends. Not every update delivers a return, like we talked about, and not every renovation is necessary. But some renovations may be, like the carpet, for example, that Tiffany was talking about. She was having a seller, they were having trouble selling the house. She kept insisting that they replace the carpet. And once that was done, which is a very significant change, buyer to go see a house with brand new carpet, then they were able to get that moving quickly. Strategic guidance helps sellers invest wisely, attract stronger offers, which is really what you want in the end, and reduce the time on market. The more time that your house spends on the market, the more profit you are going to lose. One of the most powerful ideas that we discussed with Tiffany Dearman today is that buyers and sellers may be on opposite sides of the transaction, but emotionally, they're often experiencing the same thing: uncertainty, pressure, fear of making the wrong decision, and hope for what comes next. And that's why the biggest takeaway from today is this: confidence is not personality based, it's process based. You have to trust the process and you have to work with somebody as professional as Tiffany to make sure that they guide you and they give you all of this perspective. Confidence comes from preparation, from clear communication, from knowing why you're making each move, and from working with professionals who don't just focus on closing transactions, but on guiding people through moments that matter. Tiffany brought incredible insight to this conversation. Her experience as a coach and her real world perspective remind us that when people understand the process, they make better decisions and they feel better while doing it. Confidence is enforced, built through systems, education, and trust. For buyers, that means having a plan before emotions take over. For sellers, it means understanding how preparation and strategy work together to create strong outcomes. And for everyone involved, it means remembering that the market does not get to control your experience. Preparation creates options, strategy creates leverage, and confidence comes from knowing you are supported every step of the way. So whether you are buying your first home, your second or your third home, you're preparing to sell, or navigating a competitive market, remember this: you don't have to rush and you don't have to do it alone. There are people like Tiffany wherever you live, if not Tiffany herself, that can help you through the entire process, that can set the expectations for you, inform you of what the process is going to look like. So, as Tiffany said, she would take away the stress from you. And that is very important when you're making such a big decision, because as I said, we definitely don't want you to get a buyer's remorse on something as big as purchasing a home. So when you understand the process and you trust the guidance that you're receiving, clarity replaces fear. And that's when smart decisions happen. And it was so important to understand everything that Tiffany said today, because as a first time buyer, I can understand that the process can be very difficult. One of the first things that Tiffany said that she does for her buyers to make sure that they are very well prepared is to have them pre approved. I cannot stress how important this is. And it is not only because we want that piece of letter that is going to go with the offer, it is because when you're pre approved, you as a buyer are going to find out what numbers work for you. Because you can get pre-approved for $500,000, but your monthly payment, and I'm making up numbers here, is going to be way more than what you want. So that's when you get to talk to the lender and you decide, listen, I want my monthly payment to be at this amount. That is where the lender is going to guide you. So now you not only know how much a lender is going to approve you for, but you actually have a budget. And once you have your budget, you can figure out what the price point of that is going to be. Getting a pre-approval is also going to help you understand everything that goes into your payments. So your insurance, your taxes, if you're going to buy a house where there is a homeowners association or HOA, all of that is going to be counted into what you're going to pay. So we cannot stress enough, getting pre-approved. Pre-approved is the first step, besides talking to a real estate agent, of course, is getting pre-approved, and making sure that you do that before you want to buy the house is key. I think Tiffany and I would agree on that, that if you are able to talk to a lender a few months in advance before you want to actually buy the house, they will prepare you, because they're going to ask you for a lot of information to make sure that you have everything set up in order for you to be in the best position to buy the house. And sellers, there are resources like we mentioned on the show. There is a program, there is a company called Home Stretch. I just helped one of my sellers replace all of the flooring because it was a mess. Whoever did their flooring years ago didn't do a good job, and it was just horrible. It was going to look horrible in the pictures, and we were going to have a hard time selling it. And they were able to replace all of the carpet. This is a big house, 4,000 square feet. They replaced everything, and now the pictures look absolutely amazing. We've only been on the market for 5 days. We've had several showings. We have already buyers who are interested in submitting an offer. And had we put that house the way that it was before, it would not have been this way. And with Homestretch, there's just a resource if you want to Google them. They can do, if you qualify for it, of course, but they can do the renovations, and then you can go ahead and pay for the renovations at the very end at the closing table. So you don't have to come up with the money up front. You can actually do it later. There's plenty of other resources. If you reach out to someone like Tiffany, she will give those resources to you, because if you want the best profit that you can get for your house, that's going to be one of the things. If your house is not show ready, we are going to give you advice. We are going to give you resources so that you can get there. And thank you so much for watching today. This was so useful. Tiffany was absolutely amazing. Make sure that you check her out. I am Veronica Diquez, and this has been Home Story, because every house has a story, and the next chapter starts with you. Thank you for watching.